So can one extended NFL weekend change an entire outlook for a football season? That's going to be the question we'll ponder over the next 30 minutes on another edition of Bolts on Tap. Welcome to Social Tap SD along with John Gennaro. I'm Ben Higgins. We are doing Bolts on Tap live on Facebook, on the 10news.com Facebook page. Chargers beat the Denver Broncos 21-13 on Thursday night, and then watch as the Raiders lose yesterday. And you know what, John? All of a sudden, Chargers just 2 games back in the division, and things aren't looking quite as bleak as they were, say, last Monday when we sat here at lunchtime.
No, not anywhere near as bleak. I think the conversation you and I had before this even started was the Chargers have a chance to win the division, and if they do, I'm not just wearing this because it's October 17th, if they do, this minute's going to be the MVP. Because there's just enough going right with the San Diego Chargers right now that they have a chance. And lucky for them, the rest of the division is kind of coming down to earth at the same time.
All right, let's temper that excitement a little bit as well, because the Chargers didn't solve all of their issues with their win over the Denver Broncos. Rather, they exposed some of the same issues again in the fourth quarter. And John, I know you agree. You build up a 21-3 lead. There should be no way on earth that your opponent should end up with a Hail Mary at the end of the game with even an outside chance of tying it up with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Yet we're sitting there nervous in the fourth quarter again because the Chargers got conservative. They stopped doing what had been successful in the first 3 quarters, and we all had to sweat out another Mike McCoy fourth quarter.
No one goes away from what's working faster or more
consistently than the San Diego Chargers, and they proved it yet again. Phillip Rivers and the passing offense helped them build a good lead. The defense helped them build a good lead. And what did they do in the fourth quarter? They ran the ball, and they ran the ball, and then they ran the ball some more, and they ran it some more, as if Melvin Gordon's fumbles in the previous 2 games taught them absolutely nothing. They just kept running the ball. They actually only tried to throw the ball once in the fourth quarter, and Phillip Rivers got sacked on that play. So the San Diego Chargers apparently haven't learned from their mistakes. I think they just got a little bit luckier in this one, and good for them and good for us. They were going against a team that really didn't have a quarterback. Trevor Siemian, I think he was injured because I haven't seen a quarterback play that bad in years.
I actually heard some fans who argued that despite the win, that Mike McCoy should still lose his job after the game based on how that fourth quarter went. Now, I'd argue that you can never fire a coach after a win like that because it sends the wrong message to the team in the locker room. They played their hearts out for Mike McCoy. I don't think anyone would disagree that Chargers players did not want to see their coach get fired. They came out with an outstanding effort. You could see that they were supporting him emotionally out there on the field with the passion they played with. So you can't then say, even though you won, we're still getting rid of the coach because we don't like the way he's coaching the fourth quarter. So for better or worse, we're stuck with the guy, at least for the time being, possibly for the rest of the season. I'm going to be nervous the next time, though, the Chargers get back in that situation. You know, maybe, everything goes well in Atlanta. Maybe they'll have a lead again. I'm going to be really nervous in the fourth quarter the next time the Chargers are up again because I'm expecting to occur.
You should, because that's what they just told you is going to occur. They said when we get a lead, we're going to run the ball. We're going to run it, and then we're going to run it some more, and we're going to rely on our defense, and we're going to wait out the clock. The Chargers play in the fourth quarter with a lead against the clock, which is part of the reason against other NFL teams they were 1-4 to start the season. They're continuing to do that. They did it against the Broncos. If they get a lead against the Atlanta Falcons, they're probably going to do it again. If they get a lead against the Denver Broncos 2 weeks from now, they're probably going to do it again. This is what Mike McCoy, and I guess, look, we can't put it all on McCoy. Ken Whisenhunt's calling those plays. Ken Whisenhunt, those 2 guys believe this is how you win football games in the NFL, and I don't think they've woken up to the fact that that's what's actually costing them games.
All right, if you want to chime in on Bolts on Tap, you can do so. Just comment along on Facebook. We'll take some of the questions, some of the comments as we go. You can also tweet us. I'm at Ben Higgins SD. He's at John M. Gennaro on Twitter. Roberto just chimed in, said still a long way to go. Absolutely. There's still 10 games left to go in the season, and the Chargers are 2-4. So I've brought the schedule with us today to take a look at what is left for the Chargers this season. It's realistic to think that the team could get back to a position where 9-7 or 10-6 is a possibility. Because not going to the playoffs except under exceptional circumstances at 8-8. So, is there a road to 9-7 or 10-6 for the San Diego Chargers, John? I look at the rest of the schedule and I say, yes. Yes, there is.
I think there's a possible road to, you're going to call me crazy, 11-5.
Wow.
Look, the Falcons.
That would be a 9-1 finish.
Yes. And honestly, I'm thinking there may be 9 straight wins to end the season, which would make them one of the scariest teams in the NFL. But outside of going to Atlanta and playing the Falcons this week, there's not really a game left on the schedule that scares me. Now, the Panthers could certainly wake up. The Oakland Raiders can turn out to be more the 4-1 team they were before this weekend and not the team that got kind of manhandled by the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs could go on a run after their bye week. There could be teams on the schedule that change how I feel about them by the time the Chargers play them. But right now, outside of that game in Atlanta against the Falcons, I'm not really afraid of anybody.
So to me, the key is trying to steal one of these next 2 games.
Yes.
If you can just go 1-1 at the Falcons and at the Broncos, your next 2 games, all of a sudden the rest of the schedule, the Chargers should be favored, I'd say, in at least 5 of those games, possibly 6 of them.
Okay.
Depending on, how the teams are playing, injuries at the time. Things change week to week in the NFL, obviously, but home against the Titans should be favored. Home against the Dolphins should be favored.
Yep.
Home against the Bucs should be favored. Home against the Raiders, I think the Chargers should be favored in that game based on the fact that they were only 3.5-point underdogs on the road to the Raiders.
And they only lost by 3, and they shouldn't have even lost that game.
They had a chance to win that game. At the Browns, the winless Browns still, they should be favored in that one. And
Right.
then the last game against the Chiefs, I kind of see it as a pick 'em right now.
Right.
They dominated the Chiefs for 3 quarters in Kansas City, but that is so far down the road. That's New Year's Day that I'm not comfortable putting it one way or the other. So it would be 5, possibly 6,
Well, and
if you think the Chargers are favored.
At some point, Vegas is going to stop putting the Carolina Panthers as favorites to win a game. They're 1-5. At some point, they could stop putting the Texans as favorites to win the game, even at home, because the Texans are a bad team. They barely beat the Colts last night, who are a bad team. So the Chargers, look, I made fun of people when the Chargers were 1-4 by saying they might be the best 1-4 team in NFL history, but they might have been. And right now at 2-4, they look more like a 4 or 5 win team. They have a very strong front 7 on their defense that's playing fantastic. The passing offense hasn't slowed down one bit with the losses of Keenan Allen and Danny Woodhead, and the running game is doing just enough. Really, the only thing that made that Broncos game close was mistakes on special teams that are easily fixable by just not having those guys on the field anymore. Travis Benjamin lost his punt returning job after a couple weeks. Kenny Wiggins is never going to be on the field again for a kick return, I guarantee you. So right now, it looks like the Chargers have some issues that are fixable and have other things that they should be walking into games very confident of their abilities to win them.
So ultimately, what I'm really saying, though, is for the Chargers just to get to 9-7, which doesn't guarantee a playoff spot, they really only have to win maybe one game that they will be underdogs in the odds
right,
maker.
and I was saying I don't even know if they're going to be underdogs.
And maybe not if
Texans and Panthers.
It's possible that they
might
won't.
just have to win all of the games that Vegas thinks they're going to win.
All right.
But to be favored in all of these games, they're going to have to win these games as well.
All right, Richard Wade from BoltsOnTheBlue.com tweets in, there's a path to the playoffs, but what do you think is more likely, first or last? Now, to be fair, and it's a great question, I still think last is more likely than first because they're sitting in last by more than a game right now. They're
Yes.
a game and a half behind the third-place Chiefs.
Yep.
So unless you do something dramatic and remarkable the rest of the way, you just play 500 football the rest of the way, there's a great chance you're going to end up in last place in the division. So to me, yes, last is still more likely. We're not talking about maybe the preponderance of evidence. I'm just looking for a realistic path. It may only be a 15 or 20% path, but at least it's there. And I don't think we could see that path 7 days ago.
Well, I'll put it this way, and I know usually this is kind of an overreaction Monday type of show, but the game is a few days old. I'm still going to overreact here. I think the key to all of this is, of course, Phillip Rivers staying healthy and continuing to be a top 5 quarterback in the league, but Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa changes that defense. And if Joey Bosa is healthy throughout the rest of the season and he continues to play this well, I think first place is more likely than last place because right now Joey Bosa makes that defense seem almost unbeatable.
Roberto says the only way the Chargers win this year is if Jesus comes down and plays linebacker.
Well, or Joey Bosa.
Well, that'd be a formidable 1-2 duo.
Yes.
Of Jesus and Bosa on the Chargers defense right there. Let me follow up to Richard's question, though, with kind of an addendum, and that is, if the Chargers still had Keenan Allen, play the what-if game, still had Keenan Allen, Danny Woodhead, and Jason Verrett, are we talking about a team that we feel is a Super Bowl contender, like one of the best teams in the NFL with those guys? Because I firmly believe you keep all those guys healthy, the Chargers are probably 5-1, maybe 6-0 at this point. They're not 2-4. So everyone is on the Chargers bandwagon and going, wow, this could be your new Super Bowl favorite in the AFC.
That's probably true. I mean,
it is.
If you the whole they would probably be 5-1 type of thing is probably true. I mean, if you put Keenan Allen in the position Travis Benjamin was in a couple weeks ago, he probably doesn't fumble that ball. You have Danny Woodhead in there getting some of those fourth quarter carries. He's probably not fumbling as much as Melvin Gordon. I still think you can't take all the blame off the coaches and put it on the injuries. I think part of this is the coaches just screwed up. And I don't know that having those players back would cover up some of the mistakes this coaching staff has made so far this year.
Ty says, LOL, I love the Bolts, but we are not going to be in the playoffs. So there's definitely a healthy skepticism still out there. And there absolutely should be. And I think that's a good way to transition into this week's edition of Mike's Mistakes, because there's one thing that bothered me more than anything else in the win over the Broncos on Thursday night, and that was the sideline demeanor of the head coach as his team was slowly falling apart in the fourth quarter. And the shot is Mike McCoy. I mean, you can't have missed it. Hands, face buried in his hands. 15 seconds to go in the game. Denver with the ball, down 8, driving down for what could be a tying touchdown. And he's at least for 10 seconds down on his knees. What was he doing at that part of the game? And why would a coach ever want to take that sideline demeanor when you're supposed to be projecting confidence to your players? Like, hey, we're going to get this done. I mean, that projected to me, here we go again. Oh, no, we're about to lose.
You know, I was with you. And Thursday night, I thought that was pathetic, and I thought it was embarrassing, and I thought it said a lot about Mike McCoy's ability to lead this team. A few things have changed since then. Number one, did you hear Scott Kaplan's semi-explanation about this on Friday? He said that Mike McCoy had lost a close friend.
He did. Former Utah teammate who died in a bicycle accident the day before.
And so he thought maybe he was thinking of him. He was just naturally emotional. I wasn't even really buying that per se. But yesterday, I was watching the Giants-Ravens game. And at the end of the game, the Ravens are trying to drive down to win. And the team makes a mistake. They try and throw a deep pass, try and get a touchdown, try and win the game. And it's sort of a blown play. It doesn't work out. And I see John Harbaugh do almost the same thing. He didn't go down to his knees, but he leaned over, hands on his knees, and let out a big, sigh. And I could tell that he didn't want to yell at anybody. He didn't want to yell at anybody, but he was frustrated. And so he was like, I just got to let the frustration out as quietly as I can, and then we'll get back to coaching. It's entirely possible that McCoy was doing the same thing. I don't know if he was. It certainly seemed a little overdramatic, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I don't know if I can, but I want to.
All right, comment coming in on Facebook. I'm sick of the off-with-their-heads mentality. The team obviously plays hard for their coach. I can't really disagree with that. I mean, the off-with-their-heads mentality is never healthy for a football team or any other team when the coach's job is in the crosshairs week after week. Creates a lot of stress in the locker room, a lot of tension, fan unhappiness. It's not a good thing. So there's only two ways you can go. You fire the coach, and then the head's off, and you don't have to talk about it anymore.
Right.
Or you have to change the culture somehow. And I don't know that the Chargers can change the culture under Mike McCoy. He is who he is, so we may still have this same mentality the rest of the season. Chargers are just going to have to learn to deal with it.
Yeah, the only way I can really see the culture changing without the coach changing is a new leader or two sort of popping up out of nowhere in the locker room and really taking the bull by the horns here. Now, that could be, a first-year player that it's taken him a month or two to really get through to somebody like a Dwight Lowery or Brandon Mebane. That could be a player that's getting on the field as a starter for the first time, like a Casey Hayward or even a Joey Bosa. Or that could be, some other rookie that came in like a Jatavis Brown who, maybe wasn't being a leader because he was a rookie, but now that he's on the field contributing, can sort of take that leadership role. But by and large, it is hard. It is very difficult to change the culture under a coach without firing him and moving on to someone else's culture.
All right, Glenn says the rookie special teams coach either needs guidance or to be removed. And as we wrap up our discussion of the Broncos game, and we're going to look ahead to next week in the Falcons in our second half, that was the one area that, of the three phases that Mike McCoy likes to talk about, that was the one that clearly continues to be a big issue.
It was terrible.
You had the two fumbles,
Yep.
the muff punts, the drop by Wiggins, Travis Benjamin. What the heck were you doing?
Yeah.
And one of the worst onside kick defenses, coverages, whatever you want to call it, hands team performances that I have ever seen in NFL history. That was the easiest onside kick recovered that I've seen in the NFL by the Denver Broncos, maybe ever.
Well, and this comes after a month of Drew Kaiser being terrible. He was great in this game, but he started out the season terrible. Obviously needs better guidance. A week after Drew Kaiser had the issues as a holder, and now you have Kellen Clemens holding kind of for the first time in his extended career. The special teams in general appears to be a mess, but that's one of those situations where if you fire him, any good special teams coach has a job right now. You're not really going to find someone out on the street just walking by who can do it better than the guy that's in there now. So do you take what you have and maybe plan to try and make an improvement in the offseason, or do you try and blow it up and hope for the best?
All right, we are live at Social Tap San Diego, down on J Street, right outside Petco Park. Fantastic place for lunch, and they got a good lunch crowd in here today.
The food smells great.
I'd like to think it's for the show.
It might be for the show.
It's probably for the food because it's really, really good.
And
but
the weather finally got nice after a little sprinkle this morning.
We've also got an exciting announcement because the official grand opening of the second Social Tap San Diego location on Art Street on El Cajon Boulevard, right by San Diego State.
I think he said 4800 Art
4800 Art Street is this Friday, the 21st. You're going to have a reception, invite you on down. You probably watch some San Diego State football because they're on television that night if you're not going to the game at the Q. It is open, soft opening, but official grand opening party on Friday night. And you're going to have a second Social Tap SD option at the SDSU area, 4800 Art Street. Very excited about doubling our capacity for Social Tap in San Diego.
Yeah, and if you do go down to the Aztecs game, check the hours. Maybe you can go down there afterwards and get a bite to eat.
All right, let's get back to some of your questions here on Facebook as we continue on Bolts on Tap. Is Hunter Henry legit?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best tight end the Chargers have right now, and this is not a knock on Antonio Gates other than the fact he's old. I mean, he's not the same player he was 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. He's a Hall of Fame tight end, but he's old.
Body takes a beating.
And Hunter Henry is certainly, right now, should be the number one option at tight end that Phillip Rivers is looking for.
Yeah, and he was that on Thursday, and he rose to the occasion. I mean, he was fantastic. One thing that I really love about Hunter Henry is the ability to do multiple things. He's a much better run blocker than Antonio Gates. He's a much better pass blocker than Antonio Gates. He can run great routes, which we know Gates can as well. But the other thing Henry can do when he gets the ball in his hands is he can pick up yards after the catch, and that is very, very important for a tight end in this offensive system.
Tom again chimes in, get that guy a booster seat. Is that you?
I hope so. Yeah. Well, we
just a couple of cushions or something.
We can't all be 6'5".
Should I maybe I could slouch a little bit just to even us out.
Please do. Maybe we'll just get you a shorter stool.
Sorry. We're just not the same height. You're just going to have to deal with the fact that your co-hosts are of quite different heights.
Right.
On Bolts on Tap.
I have the bigger brain. You have the bigger body.
You certainly have the bigger mouth. There's definitely no doubt about that. Someone chimed in as we look ahead to the Atlanta Falcons game on Sunday, and this is going to be a tough one. I mean, the Falcons played the Seahawks yesterday, very tough on the road. Julio Jones, I have no idea who's going to cover him. He said that might be a 48-45 final score.
Who said that?
I lost who made the comment, but I saw it flying by on the Facebook comments.
I mean, the Falcons.
It could be.
The Falcons have had some games like that. Against the Panthers, they won 48-33. Against the Saints, they won 45-32. I could see something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Just got customers going by here, just saying hi.
Yeah, big time fans of
that's not a bad option for the Chargers. If they can score with the Atlanta Falcons, that might be the best way to stay in the game. My worry is that the Falcons score a lot and the Chargers don't.
Well, the Falcons only put up 24 against the Seattle Seahawks, and I don't know.
That's a lot. That's a really good defense.
I know. I really want to talk about this, but I don't know how. The San Diego Chargers defense is great, and I don't know why they're great.
I mean, without Jason Verrett, they had their maybe best game of the season last
Without
week.
Jason Verrett and Brandon Flowers and Jaleel Adai, Denzel Perriman played sparingly. Manti Te'o's out for the year. I don't totally understand what's going on here, which is why I kind of previously gave all the credit to Joey Bosa. But the Chargers' defense is fantastic, and that is something we can't look past. I mean, with all of these games going forward, even if we don't understand why, really, and really I think it comes down to the front seven is just so dominant right now. Hopefully they stay healthy and continue to play that well. But looking forward, even to this game, you have to assume the defense is going to play very well, in which case they're probably not going to give up 45
You mentioned
points.
the defense, and I got a Twitter question here from Danny Coyles. They ask, should Adai and Flowers start if they're available this week? My gut says no. Jaleel Adai has been out for, 4 weeks with a broken collarbone?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Brandon Flowers, I think, has been out 3 weeks with a concussion. They're getting close to where they might be returning, but that's an interesting question. The Chargers played well with Dexter McCoy in there, that big, tall safety kid that they've added. And
The Malcolm Floyd of safety.
adds a different dynamic. Casey Hayward's certainly been very solid as a starter on the secondary for the San Diego Chargers. I don't know that those guys, you don't want to rush them back.
Well, so here's the thing, and I'm going to answer his question and the thing you brought up at the same time. As far as who defends Julio Jones, I'm not certain that it matters. Because looking back, the Jaguars, both Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, didn't really get going against the Chargers during the game. T.Y. Hilton certainly got going against Jason Verrett, who was playing on a torn ACL, so that makes some sense. And against the Raiders in Verrett's first game out, Amari Cooper did next to nothing. Against the Broncos, granted they were kind of playing without a quarterback, but Emmanuel Sanders, 40 yards. Demaryius Thomas, 35 yards. No touchdowns for either one of those guys. I'm not exactly sure how the Chargers are doing this or who will defend Julio Jones, but I'm certain that the Chargers are showing you right now top-flight, elite talent wide receivers can be stopped by this defense.
Which I was expecting this year
Just
because
with
of Jason Verrett.
Yeah, that's what's the crazy thing. Is you're getting kind of the performance you expected with different guys. I couldn't even tell you who the other starting cornerback was this week, except it's Steve Williams, maybe, who no one here thinks is graduating into a.
It was the other Williams. What's his name from Trevor Williams? I think was out there.
It's certainly not Jason Verrett-like out there, but the defense is just schemed so well. And the front seven is getting to the quarterback so quickly that there's not enough time for them to make a play.
Let's give Tom Telesco some credit here because he's taken a fair share of shots over his entire tenure as Chargers general manager. Many of them deserved. And you wrote a piece on Bolts from the Blue this morning we can discuss in a second about Melvin Gordon and why it was still a huge mistake to draft him. But one thing that Tom Telesco has done really well, what do you call it? Finding guys off the street to plug in at the last minute. The cut guys from other players, undrafted guys. Karan Reed was one this season. The middle linebacker they picked up from the Raiders who had a huge play. Corey Toomer this week forced the fumble, recovered the fumble.
Dexter McCoy's
he's done a great
CFL.
job finding these, the poo-poo platter, what it were, of NFL players to plug in and fill in for these injured guys.
Yeah.
And they don't drop off as much as you would expect they should after some of these injuries.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned my piece, and we can get into that, because basically what I did was not so much criticize Melvin Gordon, but continually criticize Tom Telesco for drafting Melvin Gordon so high and using a first, a fourth, and a fifth-round pick on getting him. And I said, it was either in that post or in my podcast this morning, that one of Tom Telesco's biggest flaws was he drafted positions high that you're not supposed to draft high, running backs and inside linebackers. And what did he do this year? He used a 4th-round pick and a 5th-round pick on the inside linebackers instead of a 1st or a 2nd like he did with Manti Te'o, and I believe a 2nd for Denzel Perriman. And what have you seen? These guys, Corey Toomer, Jatavis Brown, as long as you get a good defensive line in front of them, they can perform. And so he at least figured out that side of the coin on the defensive end. I'm assuming we're probably not going to see another first-round running back from Tom Telesco as Chargers GM. I think he's figured that out as well. And look, this is what, his third year San Diego Chargers, 4th year as a general manager. I think Tom Telesco is figuring it out.
This year's draft is at least shaping up to have the potential to be Tom Telesco's best draft or his best draft since his first draft when he picked up Keenan Allen in the first round. But now that we've seen Joey Bosa, and we're all excited about him, great first-round pick it looks like.
Yep.
It's early, very early. Hunter Henry looks like a steal.
Yep.
We haven't seen Max Turk, the 3rd-round selection, the center, yet out of USC.
That was a project they knew that was probably going to happen.
Exactly. And then we've got Jatavis Brown in the 5th round. Josh Perry in the 4th round has played a little bit, thrown into the fire, maybe not quite ready yet.
Right.
Going punter, 6th round, doesn't look like it has paid off so far with Drew Kaiser, although he bounced back with an excellent game after the disaster against the Raiders.
He boomed a 60-yard punt, I think, twice, and then pinned the Broncos back to set up that safety late in the game. But Jatavis Brown, I don't know how you take him out of the starting lineup going forward, so let's say he's a starter. And Hunter Henry and Joey Bosa, those guys aren't just starters, they are game changers. They are the type of core players you build your franchise around. So to get 2 of those guys in the same draft and another starter or 2 or 3 in the same draft, that's the type of draft that set A.J. Smith up for a pretty successful run with the Chargers.
All right, I see a little thread has developed within our comments during the show here on Matt Ryan versus Phillip Rivers. So the question was, how does Matt Ryan compare to Phillip Rivers? Probably a Falcons fan who says Matt Ryan is 10 times the quarterback of Phillip Rivers.
Whoa.
That is not true.
No.
That is not true at all. But I would say that they're not dissimilar. You know, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan with the Southern accent.
Does Matt Ryan have a Southern accent?
No. Phillip Rivers is Matt Ryan with the Southern accent. Matt Ryan's kind of Phillip Rivers without it.
Sure.
They've both had mixed results in their career. They've both had a couple of outstanding years. I'd say Phillip certainly has done more overall to prove that he's in the top level of quarterbacks than Matt Ryan. But I tend to throw the same blanket over them from year to year. They're in that group right below the group of elite quarterbacks that you usually reserve for Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning before he retired. They're in the next group, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, a couple other guys.
And that group, I don't disagree with you, that group year to year usually ends up having a really great first 10 weeks of the season, and then they start dropping off the closer they get to the playoffs. Sometimes they don't perform as well in the playoffs. As an example of that, right now, Matt Ryan is the number 1 quarterback by ESPN's QBR and on Football Outsiders. Phillip Rivers is 3rd in QBR and 5th on Football Outsiders. These are 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I don't think one of them is 10 times the quarterback the other one is. And as a matter of fact, I think if you replace Travis Benjamin with Julio Jones, you would see Phillip Rivers in that number 1 spot.
Can we do that? Is that possible this week?
Might as well make the call, right?
With the Falcons'
no reason
mind?
not to make the call. But if you replace Julio Jones with Travis Benjamin, I think Rivers is probably having an even better season than he's having now.
All right, Webb Ferris has contributed his weekly 3 NFL questions for us to answer. So let's get to those here in our last few minutes. 1, should Andrew Luck demand a trade? What is we just shifted that question from Phillip Rivers to Andrew Luck this week because the Colts blew a big lead. Is Ryan Grigson the worst GM in NFL history?
NFL history?
Any complaints you lay on the Colts, you probably have to throw on the Chargers 2 weeks ago. Because they've been very similar over the last few years.
Yes. Well, the difference, really, and I hate to come back to this, the difference right now is Joey Bosa. The Colts have Andrew Luck and nothing else. The Chargers have Phillip Rivers, now Hunter Henry, and Joey Bosa, and that defensive line that's playing well. That's why they're starting to win games.
And if they weren't hurt, they'd have Keenan Allen out there. They'd have Jason Verrett. I mean, those are,
I think
game-changing type players as well. And the Colts don't even have hurt game-changing players.
This sounds crazy because Andrew Luck's still only 25, 26 years old, but at least this season, I would rather have the Chargers roster than the Colts roster.
All right, number 2, give me one team with 4 or more wins right now that won't make the playoffs. This is definitely the best of the 3 questions.
Oh, man, I got to look up who
I will throw out the Oakland Raiders. Just after watching them the last 2 weeks, should have lost to the Chargers, then get manhandled at home by the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not trending in the right direction, and they're still the Oakland Raiders. So that's one of the reasons why we started this show by saying that maybe the division is still in play. We know that, I want to sneeze.
Oh, man.
No, I fought it off.
Okay.
Didn't fight it off. We started out, talking about how the division could still be in play.
Yes.
We know the Chargers can compete with the Broncos.
Yes.
They beat them. We saw them almost beat the Raiders, and we saw the Raiders take a big step back yesterday. I think that's the big reason why. I don't think both of those teams are going to the playoffs, and they both have 4 wins.
I'm going to go with a different team now that I've looked this up because I don't think there's a question there about Dak Prescott, but I want to talk about Dak Prescott because he's awesome. I think the Redskins are going to implode. Right now they are 4-2. I would be surprised if they finish with more than 8 wins.
Redskins are 4-2.
Yes.
Stunner.
Yeah.
The NFC East could be the best division in football right now.
Absolutely, it is the best division in football right now.
Crazy. No one saw that coming at all. Last question, and this actually could be the worst question ever. If they played tomorrow, could number 1 Alabama beat the Browns or 49ers? 1, 2, 3 all together? No. Never.
Every year, someone asks that question.
There's no college team that can beat even the worst NFL team in history, I would argue. Maybe if you go back to
I think if you let
time travel Alabama back to the 1976 Tampa Bay Bucks now, maybe they'd have a chance. But no modern NFL team is going to lose to a college team.
If you said Alabama gets to use their entire roster and the Browns only get to use their defense, I still think the Browns probably win that game.
All right, it is a 1:05 start next Sunday, so the Chargers don't have that early 10 a.m. start, but they have not won in Georgia since 1988. Phillip Rivers has never beat the Atlanta Falcons in his career.
I'll tell you this much, if they win in Atlanta and then they go and face a Broncos team that still hasn't figured out their quarterback thing and they win there, in 2 weeks we're going to be buying playoff tickets and making plans for the postseason.
All right, don't forget Monday Night Football tonight, the Burger and Beer Special, $10 here at Social Tap San Diego on J Street, and the grand opening party for Social Tap San Diego State, 4800 Art Street at El Cajon Boulevard. This Friday, you're going to have 2 locations to join. This has been another edition of Bolts on Tap. We've got some optimism. I hope we have it next Monday at 12:30.
MVP.
For John Gennaro, I'm Ben Higgins. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. Bolts on Tap from 10 News.